It is a pleasure for us to be here today at Fernhill Water Power Station. We are having a privilege of being here where we will be actually be taken on a tour to see where potable water that serves the residents of Bulawayo really come from. Good enough, we have got city council staff who will be taking us through to show us this is not exactly where the dams are. Let the people understand that. Dams are about 15 or 20 kilometers from this point. But this is the point where a lot of distribution of water that comes from Ncema Waterworks is done, where it is sent from here, is distributed to the Pretorians, where we've got one at Burnside, we've got the Tuli one. We are here to see what is happening. This is what makes Bulawayo proud, because it has always been able to clean its water, distribute its water effectively. Although we must highlight, Bulawayo is only having a serious challenge of non-availability of enough raw bulk water, which is the responsibility of the Zimbabwe National Water Authority. And we are calling upon our government to do a strong intervention. When it comes to distributing and cleaning the water, Bulawayo has always excelled. This is a Fernhill water pump station. We receive water from Ncema and then we push it to Criterion Reservoir and Tuli Reservoir. We have got a clear water line here, which we push water, which pushes water to the Tuli Reservoir. We have got 2 lines for raw water, but right now we're using 1 line. So that is the Salza line. The KSP line is not working at the moment, just because there is work being done there. Yeah, this is a clear water pump house. In this pump house, they've got 7 pumps, which we use to draw clear water from the clear water reservoir and push it to Tuli Reservoir.
We use only 2 pumps at a time. So apparently we are servicing the other motor to install on the number 7 position. But otherwise, for now, there is no disruption in pumping with the current status, yes. So we are delivering as maximum as we can using the available pumps.
The other issue, can you explain to us? It seems there is a lot of business taking place, a lot of noise. Is this noise, do you sometimes switch it off, or is there 24 hours a day? What's happening here? Can you just give us a background exactly as how these machines operate? Do you switch them off or they are always on?
Normally it's 24 hours a day. But it can happen that if there is no power, there will be no noise in the station. The plant will be quiet. But if there is power, normally it's 24 hours.
In the event that there is no power, what effect does it have in terms of you guys, council bring water to the residents? Does it have any effect or not? And how then what measures do you put in place in case there is no power? What should you do in order to make sure that the water is pumped to the residential areas?
For power, there is only power from ZESA. There is no other source of power which we use for our pumping. In the event there is less power available from ZESA, we're trying to negotiate so that they can maybe give us a leeway so that we can continually pump our service to Bulawayo.
This is really a sign that shows how Bulawayo is able to have, looking at all this machinery that we're looking at. And as we're hearing, that there is a challenge, that is the source of energy is only ZESA. Once we've got a challenge with ZESA, the whole city is in a crisis.
May I know, we are talking about Ncema, which is the source of water which is coming here. Do you have the equal number of engines at Ncema as compared to this place? And why didn't we have maybe the pump station at Ncema and the pumping water straight away to Criterion? Can you explain on that?
Okay, apparently it depends on the pump capacity. The capacity of the pumps allow for a certain distance, you see. So this is merely a booster station to boost water from Ncema, meaning to say the pumps can't cope with the distance from Ncema to Bulawayo. Not to say that it is a detriment to our operation. It is the normal way of operating, apparently. We boost here to Criterion Waterworks.
Do you sometimes face challenges like when the machines break down? Do the machines break down?
When the machines break down, we try and hasten our operation in repairing so that as soon as possible they are returned to service. So what happens, the only challenge which we might meet is that of space, because procurement sometimes is very slow because of the economic situation. But otherwise, we take as minimum time as possible to return our pumps to service.
We understand that at this point in time, most of our dams are actually at low levels. So in the event that we get more rainfall, what adjustments do you make? Do you switch more machines, or how do you adjust the capacity here?
Maybe for future plans, there will be maybe construction of more pump stations to mitigate those challenges, because the understanding of the construction of these pump houses and the treatment works, it was for a given size of the city. But as the city is expanding, which means there is more demand, so eventually this is left to those that do planning.
We have really moved. We have seen, we are coming from Fernhill Waterworks, which is actually a booster station. Now we have moved over, we have come to a place called Criterion Waterworks. Here we will be shown how water is treated, and at the final stages, that's where we'll come. I remember we once spoke about laboratories that are found that are here in Bulawayo to make sure that the residents of Bulawayo are served with the highly quality water, which is tested and proven that is really the potable water that should be taken by the residents.
Bulawayo City Council treats water using two basic chemicals, which are aluminum sulfate, and we augment that with a polyelectrolyte, which is our catalyst. And then we've got two gases that we use to actually disinfect our water, which is chlorine gas, which is stabilized by ammonia gas. From here, we'd like to show you and go through the water treatment process that happens in Bulawayo. We've got two lines that bring water to Bulawayo, which are called our raw water lines. These lines actually bring our water to our raw water reservoir, which carries a capacity of 1.4 million cubic meters of water, and it is able to actually give Bulawayo water for basically about 7 days should you have a challenge with our water that is coming from the dams or with our pumps. Okay, here is where we start adding our chemical to the raw water that's coming from the dam. As you can see there, we've got our aluminum sulfate, and then on my left, just by that portion that you are seeing there, that's why we add our polyelectrolyte. Just here is where our water has been added. Polyelectrolyte and aluminum sulfate, and the treatment process starts from here. After aluminum sulfate has been added, then our water will flow underneath using pipes to get to our clarifiers, where after it has reacted with the chemical, we cycle whatever impurities come out of the water, and anything that remains suspended will go now from the clarifiers to the filters. So we purified the water, we've done everything. What's left is now to disinfect. Then once we disinfect, we store it in the clear water reservoir, and then it's ready to. Our system is all the use of gravity. We don't have to use any electricity. We only use electricity when we are backwashing our filters. So every filter after every 24 hours has to be cleaned of all the dirt it has trapped. If you notice, this plant of Criterion, it's got two identical plants, which we call plant 1 and plant 2. So whenever we're doing cleaning processes, we can actually use one plant while we're cleaning the other or maintaining the other.
What do you think might be the problem that might cause you to fail to produce this clean water? Do you have any problems that might lead to that?
As far as Bulawayo City Council is concerned, and with the kind and caliber of experienced people that we have, we don't foresee a situation where we'll be unable to actually continue giving you this quality and standard of water. Okay, this is our laboratory, which is like our watchdog for our water treatment. These are the people who actually test our water for us before we give it to the residents to actually prove that our water meets the requirements of SARS or WHO before we give it to the people.
We act as a watchdog for the waterworks. We also help them, like, I'm sure you've been to the treatment plant, you've seen kumados in tanks. Our duty is for us to work with them to try and determine a dosage that is adequate enough for us to clarify our water and make sure that it's suitable for drinking. What we want to see is, did our activities during the plant affect our water quality by any chance? So the water quality lab is split into two sections. There's the chemistry section and the microbiology section. Basically, the chemistry section, we test about 15 to 16 parameters on our water samples. These include amino nutrients, the hardness of the water, the pH, the oxygen, all the organics. And then we've got a microbiome section, which is specifically for the testing for microorganisms that are there in the water. We follow our samples from here. When the water leaves the reservoir, we don't say everything is okay, it's fine. We do our weekly routine tests. We follow our water reservoirs in the distribution and even go end point consumers. We identify each point like around the city and say maybe this will be representative of this area. And then we go to that place, we sample the water, we come back here and test and see if the same quality of that left here is still the same, good distribution.
In our meetings, we're saying a lot of stories. Say that, no, you see, the system mustn't close water. This issue of closing and opening is generally, what's your take as the right people to advise?
Water shedding is not an option that we'd love to have, because it harasses our system, it harasses the consumers. But unfortunately, when we shed water, we are saying we want whatever is available to last for as long as it's possible. I think people appreciate that. We don't want to get to a point where we have no water completely from the pipes for maybe 4 months or even 6 months. The reason for shading is we're trying to conserve whatever water we have. But anyway, in normal circumstances, our system is not made that we should be shedding. But we shade because we don't have a choice, we don't have the water. Actually, our job is to supply water to people 24 hours a day. So it would actually be good for us to be able to supply water to people 24 hours a day. But when we start shedding, we're saying, as Bulawayo, can we conserve our water and think ahead? Because we don't live for today, we live for tomorrow. If we consume all the water we need today and say, as long as it's available, what's going to happen tomorrow if we come to a dry season?
Yeah, welcome. This is the Bulawayo sanitary landfill site, where we process all our solid waste that comes from the city of Bulawayo, from all our 29 wards. Basically, what happens with solid waste is, after we have done all our collection from the household level, we now bring our waste to the landfill site. At the landfill site, we have mainly got 3 C's that we observe to manage our landfill site. We confine our waste, we compact it. After compacting, we cover. After we have covered, we are done with the process. And as well, to help expand the lifespan of our landfill site, we have got a lot of recycling that is taking place. You realize that there are so many materials that come to the landfill site, their use will not have been exhausted. We also recycle. We recycle plastic, papers, cardboard boxes, bottles. There are a lot of other materials that residents feel they've finished the use of this product. But when it comes to the landfill site, because of recycling, we resuscitate the use and now change maybe and make other products. Land is something that's static. We are not going to get extra land. The land that we have to maximize its use. So this is why we do land filling and why we do a lot of recycling.
Thank you so much. Perhaps can we have a feel and hear what this landfill contributes to the livelihoods of the residents of the city?
Around the landfill site, I've got over 600 people. who are picking up this waste for recycling. I've got about 10 companies that do a lot of recycling. Some of them, for purposes of not doing marketing for them, we've only got about 10. Some recycle plastic, some recycle our PET bottles, the ones that we use for our drinks. Others recycle cardboard boxes.
Then how do you protect the environment? Because I understand that there are certain liquids that generate in a landfill site, which I understand they can be highly poisonous to our environment, the underground, the water and what have you. What material are you using to protect the environment so that residents are safe?
What basically happens is after we have done our excavation, we now do a liner. The liner that we do to protect our environment, we line what we call a cell. When we dig, we create what we call a cell, that big hole. We call it a cell. We then line it with clay, which is compacted. It now becomes like a clay pot, whereby liquids don't just escape into the environment or to pollute our underground water or our underground environment. And while we are doing that, doing our land filling, we also create what we call a leachate pond. It is also a hole that we also line with clay, so that when this leachate starts forming, it's a liquid that can be highly toxic or hazardous or something like that. We now line with clay so that whatever liquid is formed is contained in there. It's not going to overflow into our underground environment. And as well, to also protect our environment, protect our residents, we don't just leave this leachate collected like that. We test it on a monthly basis as council. And we also test our underground water within nearby sources.
Thank you. I understand that Bulawayo City Council has a vision to be a smart city, and that involves the separation of waste, so that is processed even from household level, whereby people, when you are dumping your waste at household level, we separate glass from plastic, cardboard, and so forth. Has BCC rolled out such a project yet to ensure at household level waste is separated? And if not, do you think if it's properly rolled out, will it make a big difference? Since you are saying you recycle here, would it make it easier or something if waste is separated from household level before it reaches the landfill? Thank you.
Yes, it would definitely make a big difference, because it will save a lot of resources. Because the materials that are being recycled here are first mixed together. But if we separate them from source, it's something that's in the pipeline, it's something that as a city is being planned on. But this is something that will take place in the near future.
As we're seeing on the dump site there, we can see that there is a lot of people there. I don't know, maybe whether it's a scramble for the materials that are dumped there. So is that not a risk that maybe these people might take back the waste from where it's coming from, or you just let it go like that? Yeah.
What happens is, after these people have collected, they are not the ones who process this waste. This waste is now processed by companies. Companies are registered, they've got parameters of ways of how they are supposed to operate.
Are we progressing in terms of making our city clean? If we are not progressing as we expect ourselves to, what are the problems that we are facing to try and reach the stage that we want to reach in terms of making Bulawayo clean?
We are getting better, because what we have done is we have got community involvement, whereby we have got community truckers who are now helping us to collect the waste. The whole idea is so that and we also have community sweepers. The whole idea is that if you are involved in something and you have got a full understanding.
Each suburb has got a community group that is responsible for cleaning up the area, which comprises of sweepers, who, as you can see, one of those ladies who is seated there, they are the ones who actually mop up this area, so that at the end of the exercise, once the e-refuse has been transferred from the truckers to our compactors, they will ensure that the place is left tidy and clean without any litter, cluttered around. Otherwise, from there, the council vehicles, they will collect that waste and take it to the landfill site.
So from the lessons learned from the tour, we can learn that Bulawayo is a city, has infrastructure to purify water. And some of the cities have been coming here in Bulawayo just to learn how Bulawayo has managed to have state-of-the-art infrastructure to purify water. Then in terms of waste management, we saw that they now have a landfill which can actually be harnessed and actually be a driver towards Bulawayo being a smart city.